You know, it blows my mind that in today's society, an upper middle class family can struggle to make ends meet. But it also surprises me that people don't try to find the answers of how they don't have to struggle. Without working harder, longer, or taking on any risk, it is possible, no matter whether you're upper middle class, lower middle class, uber wealthy, or way down at the bottom. You can make a difference, but you gotta believe it, and you also have to change the way you think about money. So last week, I did an episode where I talked about an average American family that was struggling to make ends meet. And I showed how they can turn things around without working harder, longer, or taking on any risk by simply changing how they view money and changing where their money goes first. But today in this episode, what I really want to talk about is not your life, your finances. I want to talk about what happens when you graduate. And I don't mean graduating from college or high school. I mean the big graduation, when you go on to heaven. What happens to your family when you're no longer here? What do you leave behind? What is that legacy? I want to show you what I've done, but not just what I've done. I'm going to bring in Hannah Kessler, and she's going to talk about her family banking system. And you can then derive how you want to create your family constitution, your family banking system. My name's Chris Naugle. This is an episode of What Now? What's next for your family? You know, and let's talk about how your family has built their banking system, which I know at first when I heard about this, I actually felt bad for you. Now, your first house, that was in Port Orange, okay, in Spruce Creek, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't it?
No. My first house when I moved to Florida, it was in Daytona Beach. You know, Port Orange is right next to Daytona Beach. I live right on the line there. But I moved down, I remember this, I had an ex-boyfriend at the time that I literally moved down from Kansas City to Florida. Don't ask me how Dad approved that. I think his mind, he didn't approve it. I think his mindset is, well, she's over 18, and what can I do about it?
It's not my job to keep you alive anymore. I think that's probably what he was thinking.
And we bought that house. It's in Pelican Bay is the community. It was a very nice community. It was a gated community, and it was in the back, and I had a duplex. So on the other side, Charlie and his wife, Dorothy, were my neighbors, and it was a 2-bed, 2-bath. I would say a little less than 2,000 square foot.
But you owned it.
And I owned it, yep. 1-car garage. It was perfect for just moving out of Kansas City, living on my own, buying my first house, no longer renting. I was 19, excuse me.
Stop there.
Yeah.
The audience is listening to this thinking, wait a second, you bought your first house, this duplex, at 18. How? Because most 18-year-olds, even 19-year-olds, there's no way they could go to the bank and get a loan. There, maybe, but rare. And they're just thinking, you know, Daddy must have just given you the house. They're thinking silver spoon. They're like, oh, she grew up, you know, with a wealthy family, and they're just giving her everything. But that's not the case.
No.
How did you buy that first house?
And I'll get into that. Let me tell you too, I had some trauma around that during my high school years because Dad is into aviation. My brother now is too. I come from a family of pilots and aviation enthusiasts. And even in high school in Kansas City, people saw that we had those airplanes, and it was just like a small, what are they called? 162s, right? Just a 4-seater 162 that Dad would take us to just the next town over. There'd be a breakfast place that we go spend our Saturday mornings at, fly over there, and then fly back home. And I had some trauma around that because people didn't know that Dad was a chiropractor. He had the offices. Oh, she's just a rich bitch. Right? So I had
that's probably what the audience is thinking here, or going to start to think as we continue this.
I know. And if you know Brent Kessler, hell no, he does not just give his stuff out for free. So what happened is that Dad had his policies, and he took a loan from his policy to buy the house in cash. I want to say back at the time, it was $150,000 to buy the house. We did a little bit of renovations into it. So doing that, I want to say he put another like 20 or 30 into it. So let's call it maybe $180,000 was the total purchase price of everything with the renovations. But he pulled out the cash from his policies, bought it in cash, And so now what Dad did is he had a loan arrangement with me, almost like a mortgage holder. So he held my mortgage. I owned the house. I was on the deed.
So he literally filed a mortgage on your house?
Yes. He always does, even if it's not.
I know. I'm just trying to make sure the audience knows that like Dad didn't just like buy the house for you.
Oh, no. He files that with what, the county?
Yeah.
Yes. So he filed that. And then what I did every month is I was paying Dad my monthly mortgage payments. Now, Dad does charge interest because he understands money.
Before we get into the interest, what was the year that you bought this house? I just want to try to preface the interest rate that you could have got a loan.
2018.
So 2018. So in 2018, you probably could have got a loan from a bank, 5.5% maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we did the transaction, and then every month now I'm paying my monthly payments to him, and I don't skip a beat in doing it because he always tells me, hey, I love you, but this is just business. So he charges me a 13% interest on that mortgage of that first house.
So you could have got a mortgage at a bank for, let's say 6 or 7% because of your age, if you could have got a mortgage, and he's charging 13%.
That's it. And some parents will say, well, that's just mean. That's not nice. I even have family members that will just give their kids like their cars. Hey, I need a new car, so how about you just take over mine? I hate that. So that kind of goes against the Austrian school of thought, in my opinion. But why he does that is because Dad is a lender. That's what he likes to do in his investment life. And he has people knocking at his door saying, hey, Brent, lend your money to me. I'll pay you no less than 16, 18% on that money. So he calls it the family discounts being 13%. But here's the whole mentality behind it. If you really understand privatized banking, and keeping the money in the family, the vehicle that we're using, it's not rocket science, it's a whole life insurance policy. That's all that it is. The only thing that we do different over here and when we're designing the policies is just structuring it to have that immediate high cash value. That's all that we do different. But at the end of the day, it's a whole life insurance policy. So what he was doing is when I would pay him back those monthly payments, he tracks the interest that I do pay him. How much of that went to the principal, how much of it went to the interest.
Oh, so he breaks it down, principal versus interest.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes. And so what's gonna happen is at the end of it all, we're all guaranteed to graduate or pass away. And when that time happens, there's this death benefit, because Brent's got policies on his body, my mom does too, all of us do. That death benefit now is going to get paid out to the beneficiaries. And really what I think it is, and we're coming up here soon to have our annual family banking meeting, which I'll even add is very important. People need to have annual family banking meetings. Make it a vacation, go somewhere nice. That's what I think we're gonna do after the Croatia trip is stay a little bit longer, go to Germany, and then have the family banking meeting. But anyways, getting off topic there. So what happens is that when Dad passes away, there's this death benefit money that's going to get paid out. And he's tracking this. I have an older brother and a younger brother, and then there's me. So there's 3 kids here, and all kids borrow from the family bank. And so we track how much interest each child has paid. So number example, let's say that there's a $1 million death benefit, just using easy numbers. And let's say over the course of Brent's lifetime, Hannah paid him $100,000 in interest. Zach, my younger brother, paid him $50,000 in interest. And Sean, my older brother, paid him $150,000 in interest. So a total of, what is that, 300, right? So 150 and then 250. So what's going to happen is that death benefit money is going to get paid out directly to each respective kid first. So Hannah's going to get $100,000 first. Zach's going to get $50,000 first, and then Sean's going to get $250,000 first. So total of that money, I didn't do my math right, but anywho.
That's okay. I'm sure everybody's just kind of thinking of how the logic is going into this.
Yes. So those monies get paid out first, and then the leftover cash bucket there, that's going to get split up equally between each child.
Interesting. So it is, the death benefits are paid directly to the beneficiaries.
That's my question that I want to bring up in our annual family banking meeting. Because yes,
mine is set up differently, which
with
we'll
the
get
trust.
into in a second. Yes.
Yes. So that's what I want to bring up in our next meeting. Hey, is this going to be paid out to the trust, or are these getting paid out to the individual people? And actually, you got me thinking about that during this recording right now. That's one of the questions I got to start asking about.
Well, I got a little something too that might help you in that meeting. I've got it's called the Legacy Workbook. That Legacy Workbook, you've seen it before, is kind of how I modeled mine. So this is how I did mine. So I read this. This is Live Your Richest Life, Legacy Builder course right here. And in here, it kind of goes through how the Rockefellers structured their family banking system. You know, and you can see I got it all highlighted here. So when I was going through this journey of figuring out, like, how do I want my legacy to pass on to my kid or kids, you know, if I have more than one. So, you know, and folks, just real quick aside, if any of you want this in this podcast, what we're gonna do, we're gonna put a link in the bio. You can click the link and we will give this to you for free. It's literally a roadmap of how to create your family constitution and structure your family, basically your family banking system and the trust that go with it.
Your family constitution, I like that.
Yeah. So I think that would be good. You just literally stroll into that family meeting, that yearly family banking meeting, and you say, hey, listen, I had an idea, you know, and you kind of do it from here. But let me kind of I love that model, but my fear would be if I died, you know, and both Brent and I, we have lots of death benefit. He has way more than I do, but that's a significant amount of money. Yes, I love the idea of paying you back all the money you've put into the family banking system, because you paid interest in, dollar for dollar, he's tracking that, you're gonna get that back. That's freaking awesome, because that motivates you to want to make your payments. Like, why would you not want to pay 13? Dad, you sure you don't want to charge me 14? I'm happy to pay it in, because you're gonna get it all
Don't
back.
give him any ideas, Chris.
I promise I won't, but you're gonna get all that money back, you know, when Brent graduates, when your dad graduates, which we don't even want to talk about. But anyway, but that's motivation so that you don't ever want to miss a payment, because hey, it's your money.
Yeah.
You're literally paying the money back, and that money is yours.
I'm gonna do a PSA real quick for one of my siblings, because one of my siblings doesn't get that yet. Instead of going to the family bank,
I wonder who that is.
and he bought a new truck, okay?
I know who it is.
Yep. And this truck, it's a sexy truck. It's a big Florida boy truck, right? And instead of going to the family bank and taking out that loan of the 13%, he decided to go down to the bank because he says, well, hey, this bank's gonna give me a loan for 5%. I'm gonna go with this bank loan instead of this loan over here. All right, you do you. He just doesn't get it. He doesn't get the full circle of it. So that's what we're working on.
Yeah. So folks, if you're listening to what Hannah just said, I hope your family understands that. I hope you understand that first, but then you got to teach your kids that if you did something like what, you know, Hannah, you know, and her family did, and what I'm going to talk about, what I'm doing, make sure you get your family on board, because you don't want a rogue family member, brother or sister, to start running off and giving the bank some of the money that should go to the family banking system. I mean, that's almost treason.
Kind of.
I mean, I'm just calling it out as it is, but that's kind of like treason.
We got some slow learners in the family.
Well, sometimes a good slap on the ass, or, you know, the old belt trick will work.
But you know what's kind of cute though? He does call me up and he asks for my opinion on, hey, should I get into this cryptocurrency, or should I do some more of this lending? And we just got to go through the pros and the cons of everything. I want him to make his own decisions, but it makes me feel good that he calls me up and is asking me those questions, because he is thinking about it.
So this is a perfect segue into what I'm going to go into. So now, a scenario like that, you're paying into it, your other brother's paying into the system, knowing, you know, someday all that money's going to come back to you first. But then you got the rogue brother who is not paying into the system and is going that way. So should something happen, now that remaining pool, after you're all recouped the money that you paid in, now there's this remaining amount. Now that's split up amongst all of you.
Yeah.
Okay? Always need a bigger truck. There's never a truck that's too big, especially if you live in Florida. So now he takes all that money And now he just goes out and buys a bigger truck, goes out and blows it all and squanders the family's, generational wealth.
Bingo.
So that's hurting the growth of future generations. Because let's say he has kids and you have kids and your older brother has kids.
They get married and they have all these different
opinions. And now all of a sudden this great thing, this family banking system, which benefited you and your family and everybody was putting into it, now it's diminished.
Yeah.
Because the death benefits paid out and a couple people just couldn't get around the campfire to figure out how to do this. So how I did mine is I set up a living trust. And it took me forever to write this, and folks, don't try to do this quick. It took meeting after meeting with Larissa. When I die, I love the idea of paying the money back in, but Vivi's 4 and she's not borrowing to buy Paw Patrol yet. So, but someday she'll be paying into it. So I'll probably instill something like that. Money in, first money out, okay? But the remaining amount of the death benefit that would be paid will go into the living trust, into this trust, which then I've set up board of directors, okay? So we've got our trustees who will then determine how money is distributed from that trust. So now let's just say Vivi wants to buy a big truck, okay? And she needs a loan. So she comes to the trustees and she says, hey, listen, I wanna buy this big, turbo diesel 2500 jacked up pickup truck, whatever. And they say, okay, great. Have you thought about your repayment terms? And she says, yes, the bank is lending at 7% right now, so I'd like to do 7%, but I'd like my payment to be around $1,000 a month. So then their job is to go in and do the amortization. That's gonna be an 8-year loan or whatever. She says, fine. So now the trust gives her the money, she buys the truck. There's a lien by the trust filed on that truck. She's making the payments. Let's say she falls behind in payments. 2 things can happen. The trustees can literally take the truck back and sell it, or they can basically restructure the loan so that it works for Vivi so that she can make the payments. But Vivi knows if she doesn't make the payments, that's less money going in and she's not gonna be able to borrow for the next time. So she's gonna be basically motivated to make the payments back. Number 1, it's just more money in the pool for her kids and future generations. But number 2, it will keep her the ability so she can constantly go back to the family banking system and borrow. The second thing, just like the Rockefellers, people often don't know how the Rockefellers keep getting wealthier and wealthier generation after generation. It's not just because of their business ventures, it's because we are all guaranteed to graduate. So we will all die someday. So unfortunately, I hate even mentioning this, but let's say, Vivi lives a great long life. During her life, that trust is mandated in the documents to buy life insurance on Vivi. Vivi doesn't have to pay for this life insurance. The trust will fund the premium deposits, and that death benefit that is paid for by the trust is sufficient to cover anything she spends throughout her life. So the only limit to her borrowing is the amount of death benefit she has on her life.
Yes.
So most of that's mitigated right from day one, because when she was 6 months old, we did her first policy, which is over $1 million. Then I did another policy, I don't know, when she was 3, and that's another million and something. So she's already got a pool of money of a couple $1 million that she'll be able to borrow. But as her life goes on, the trust will just keep buying more policies, so that when she borrows, she just keeps increasing it. That way, no one child or any child of the family generation can ever deplete the family fortune.
Bingo, bingo. And that's the conversation I think a lot of people need to start having, is the generational wealth, even just the conversations about wills and testaments and estate planning. Oh my gosh, I really dove deep into that, like just this past year with our mutual friend Brent. It's just something that a lot of people don't think about. Just even myself, I'm definitely not a normal 25-year-old, but thinking about, okay, something could happen one day. I do fly a lot, you don't know what's gonna happen if you're up in an airplane all the time. So just having those precautions set in place, and then also revising it as time goes on. I think that's a big thing that people neglect too, is that they don't go back and rework their plans. So that's why, in my opinion, it is very important to have those annual meetings with the family. We call them the annual family banking meetings, and sometimes you can count it as a tax write-off. But I think it's important just to be in the tune with what's going on. So that's a question I need to ask him, because I know he's got the trust and all that set up, and I'm like, hey Pops, you got this trust after you got these policies. Are all the policies owners, beneficiaries, are these all updated in here? So that's a conversation I really want to have with him. Also, I was thinking about this too. We have a mutual person that we know, and he has a very large family banking system up in Canada. He has it written out that if a child borrows from the family bank and does not pay it back, or something happens that they're being, not nice, they're not fun to play in the sandbox with anymore, is what I like to say, they can actually put provisions in there that says you are no longer allowed to borrow from the family bank.
That's what I was saying. Like if Vivi decided to do that truck and didn't make her payments back, the trust literally will stop her from being able to borrow from the family banking system again.
And you still love her. Hey, I love you, honey.
You better wise up and smarten up.
But this is business.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks, especially in today's world, where, it's me. I think a lot of folks are like, oh, I would never do that to my kids.
Yeah.
But that's actually the opposite way you should think, because by saying that, I would never do that to my kids. I would just want my kids to have the money. They can do whatever they want. I'm not here. You are literally hurting not just your kids, but you're hurting their kids.
Yes.
So why would anyone not want to make sure that their family is taken care of when they're long gone? And all you got to do is develop your own family constitution, your own family banking system, set the rules however you want. Hey, maybe you don't want them to stop being able to borrow if they don't make a payment. Hey, give them strike 3, you're out. Like, all right, you did it once, strike 1. You do it again, strike 2, but strike 3, we're not lending to you. I mean, you can do it any which way you want.
Yes.
Because
you're in control.
You're fully in control. And you could rewrite the Constitution anytime you want to account for new kids coming into the family, grandkids coming into the family, or maybe just something happens and you need to you're like, I didn't think of that, and now you need to change it. So change it.
Yes. I'm chomping at the bit there, because let me tell you, just me being of that Gen Z generation, we have a lot of entitled effing kids. And I think a lot of it comes from the parents not teaching them about the real world, for lack of better words. It mind boggles me, all of the entitledness that I have in my generation. And I think a large part of it comes from the parenting style and those methods sometimes.
Don't worry, I go to Starbucks, I know. I see it.
And I don't want to live in a generation like that. I think it's very important to not be, what's that right word? Not incentivizing them to do, enabling them, bingo. Just keep enabling them to act in that manner. I don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah, I love it. So, with that being said, let's move on to one final thing, your new penthouse.
Yeah.
So
she's
you're
sexy.
Pretty, yes, oh yes. So Hannah recently, and I remember hearing about this, I'm like, she's not, no way she's doing that. Like, it's an over $1 million, I think?
Right around
$1 million
$957
penthouse. Now, if anyone of you watching and listening to this has ever seen a penthouse, you know what we're talking about. The top floor, you overlook the ocean, your kitty cat can sit on the top railing, and if it falls, it's gonna exhaust all 9 lives. But, so far the kitty hasn't gone off the railing, but,
No.
Penthouse. We're talking about $1 million penthouse.
Yes.
That's almost unfathomable, if I'm saying that right, unfathomable, bleep that out, for anyone your age to even consider that. Well, I guess not anyone, because there are some influencers, but the majority, 99.999% of kids your age could never do that.
Yes.
Like, how did you do it?
Yes. So, and the whole reason of why I wanted to move, so I moved to Florida in 2018, that's when I bought the first house, and it was perfect for that time. But then I was doing more. I'll tell you the 2 main reasons of why I moved. Number 1, I wanted my podcast studio in my house. I was getting tired of moving back and forth from office space to podcast space, because by the time you set up all the podcast stuff, you're like, I'm done, I'm tired, I don't even want to record anymore. So I wanted another room for that. But then also, I had an HOA. My HOA came under some new management, and we were not getting along. I had these flower beds outside that I've had for like 3 years when I was living there, and then I get a letter in the mail randomly one day saying, hey, if you need to remove your flower beds because it's against the code. You can put them in pots, but you can't have them planted in the ground. I'm like, guys, this has been here for 3 years. Are you kidding me? It's established now. It lives here now. So I got a little irritated at that. And then the biggest one is I came back on a trip in my van. So I have a conversion van that I bought through my policies too. But I came home from a trip and it was very late one night. And I was like, I just don't have time to take everything out of the van, clean it out right now because, hey, tomorrow morning I got a flight out of MCO and I got to go somewhere. So I brought the van in. It was parked in my driveway. And I get a call from one of my neighbors when I'm driving to the Orlando airport. Hey, Hannah, just want to let you know that there's a tow truck outside right now and they're trying to tow your van off of your driveway. I was pissed.
Whoa.
So luckily I had a good neighbor that kind of raised some ruckus about it, so they didn't tow it. But that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back.
Your driveway, why were they going to tow your van?
You can't have boats or RVs posted there.
You don't have an RV.
That's what I say too. And I was being very workable with them, for lack of better words. You know,
Dude,
I had a
A-team would
spot.
have whooped the shit out of somebody if they tried towing the A-team van, man. No way. That was no different.
And I got their rules. I was
Do you know
like,
what the A-team is? Sorry, let's see. See, I knew it. So, yeah. I kind of just, I threw that in there because I knew you wouldn't know what the A-team is, but that's okay.
heard
Continue.
about it.
Yep.
Do I know the whole lore behind it? Probably
Mr.
not.
T, he's pretty badass. Yep.
What you doing, sucker? I think I'll get out for a minute.
Anyway, continue on.
And so I had a parking spot for it. I had all aboard storage. I got a place where I park it because I get it, y'all. Y'all don't want it here. And I just had a one-car driveway too, anyways, and just a one-car garage. But anyways, I hated that. So I said, all right, well, you want to play games? I'm going to move then. So put up the house for sale, and I started looking. I actually looked at this one place. It was a house that was built in the 1920s. It was beautiful, old Victorian styled house. And one thing that I loved about it is it had a secret room in it. You would pull the little book down, it would open up a door. Yes,
That's
and I was like,
super cool.
I have to have this. But after doing the inspections on it, and then bringing my car over there and understanding that, hey, this house is so old that you literally can't even fit your car inside of the garage. I just don't think this is a place for you. You're on the road traveling all the time. You got this big yard. There's no HOA maintenance here anymore. You're going to be responsible for that. So there was just a lot of things that led me into the decision of, okay, this is just not my house right now. Even though I love it, it's not for me. And then that's when I started to go the condo route, because then I won't have a yard to take care of when I'm on the road, and I'll have that help from the community in the condo. So I found this house and it was just listed on Zillow. I went over there, I toured it one day, and then I think I went back like 4 days later, and I was asking Brad, the listing agent, I said, so are there a lot of serious people who are looking at this right now? He's like, well, I don't really know, but I can tell you one thing. One guy came over today and had a measuring tape, okay? So when a guy comes over with the measuring tape, I'm like, okay, he's probably very serious. So then like by that Friday, we put in an offer. I wanna say it was listed at $1 million. We came in at, I wanna say 925 or 950, somewhere around there. They countered at 975, and then we split the difference. So that's how we landed on that funky little 950 or some odd $1,000 figure. But how we did this is that Dad, again, pulled the monies from his policies, paid it in cash, did the same thing, filed the mortgage with the county. I own the house, so my name, I was going through with the people and signing off on all the documents. So I own the house. Dad is now my mortgage holder, and it's the same thing. I pay him, he charges me 13% interest. I pay him my monthly payments each month, and it just works. And two, sometimes if I ever do really need it, or let's say that I'm waiting for a check to clear, and Dad, I can't pay you on the 1st, but give me 48 hours, you're gonna get a check no later than the 3rd or the 4th. He's okay with it,
Right.
because I'm doing business with my dad rather than a banker who doesn't care what's going on in my life. They just care if they're gonna get their payment on time from me.
But I think that's really an important lesson for the audience is, the fact that your dad is acting just like a bank.
Yeah.
He is doing the note, he is doing the mortgage, he is recording it. So he's not like missing a beat with how he's structuring it, which is also teaching you, so when you have kids and you're doing the same thing, you're not gonna miss a beat either. It's kind of funny, no matter how old kids are, they just copy what we do.
Yeah.
You know, I know this with Vivi at 4, like I had her out snowboarding, and you know, I would always keep Vivi strapped in both feet when we'd go up, like we usually do the magic carpet ride or the lift. I just keep her strapped in and lift her up and put her on it. But then all of a sudden one day, like I thought she was tired, she unstraps her back foot. And I got a video of this on Instagram, and she like starts kicking, you know, like skating,
Yeah.
but not skating the normal way where the foot's in front of the board, doing it behind because it's more efficient on a snowboard, but it takes some training. And she scooted herself right up to the magic carpet ride. I literally had to move my ass to get on there at the same time. But like, I never showed her how to do this, never taught her. She did it because she watched me do it so many times. And that's exactly, I know the parable there is basically, it's the same thing. Your dad's going through a process. You're witnessing, watching, and literally signing off on this. So it's just ingrained in you. That's the norm.
Yeah.
Just like a bank. And I think that's important. So hey, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you took something away from this. But most importantly, I hope you take action. And I'm gonna make that easy. Right here, the Legacy Builder Workbook. This is yours. Right in the description, you can click the link and you can have this. This will show you how to set your trust up, how to build your family banking system and your family constitution. I need you to use this because this is going to make it a lot easier. And also, if you like this video, you're definitely gonna wanna check that video out right there. Hey, thanks for joining me for this episode. Come back and check out more episodes by clicking that little bell up there so you're notified every time I put a new one out. See you next time.